Today I am welcoming the lovely Chris Dyer. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Wendy, and everyone else.
So we're streaming on multiple places. So you might be seeing us on LinkedIn. You could be seeing us on Facebook. I'm going to put a little thing in the chat here to be sure you give Restream permission so that when you post your comments, we can see who it is. And if you have any questions for Chris, we can go ahead and ask them live. So I'm just going to jump right in, Chris. Do you want to give us a little background of who you are and what you do?
Sure. No, thank you. So yes, I am a self-professed, multidimensional, recovering perfectionist and people pleaser.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I mean and I like to say my new word is undefined because I'm so over the labels and people wanting to compartmentalize based on one thing, right? And I'm a very contextual person, and when you meet people and you just know. You really want to be judging people on character, depth of character, and integrity, and less on the content. Like maybe they're saying something today that does or doesn't resonate with me or whatever. And so I'm looking at the big picture, right? I'm looking at big impact and the context of people and being very intentional on curating the group of people and the tribe of people that I'm collaborating with and co-creating with. And so, Wendy, that's kind of how you and I really come together. I think you and I have a similar life philosophy, if you will,
I think
right?
so.
Be a good human, lead with your heart, lead with love. Yes, we all have our specific skill sets and our, what differentiates us. But when it all comes down to it, we're just good people, and we care about people, and we lead with the heart. And it's not all about the lifestyle; it's more about the legacy.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we both gravitate towards authenticity, where we just really want to live with intent, with integrity, and what we do. And so then we want to attract people who are really authentic, who can really just truly be themselves, like you said, lead with heart. And so I feel that with you too. Like you're just such an authentic person. You lead with your heart. You leave it out there on your sleeve, and I think it just really shows. Anyone who's ever met you knows that.
Yes, and even that, there's a duality in everything, and
Yeah.
sometimes people look at that and say, "Well, what does she know about, having a seven-figure sales confidence? What does she know? Where are her results?" And
Hmm.
what I'm here to say is, results come and go. It's when you get knocked down and how quickly you can rebound and get back up and keep moving, and it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to normalize. Not every day is going to be stellar. Not every day is a home run day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you do that so well with your messaging. And I just think the video you curated last week was stellar,
Oh.
spot on. But you know what? But the entrepreneur community, there's a lot of ego and there's a lot of pride. And I think that actually kind of detracts from it sort of blocks us from being even more authentic, right? Because there's a
Yeah.
perceived inadequacy, there's a perceived um, less than
Yeah.
fledgling or whatever. I mean, there's so much language out there, and I've learned to tune into what triggers me, and just to really neutralize that. It's like, yeah, um, we can be from 1 to 10 in the same day. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
It's
yeah. I've been there. I've
yeah.
yeah.
And so let's normalize that. I mean, that's just the human condition.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, and
ask.
social media tends to be this highlight reel we see of everybody. The people we look up to are like, "Oh, wow, if I could just do what that person does, I'd have what they have." But they're not showing all that behind the scenes, the feelings of isolation, when you're not making sales, when you're not creating the perfect marketing and you're just feeling like crap inside, like, "Oh man, I'm never going to get this right," because they're facing it too.
Mhm.
And we don't always see that side of it. So it's important to talk about the struggle, the
Yeah.
challenges, the things that we've all overcome.
Well, Facebook networking groups, I'm just very, very highly attuned into, yeah, I want to see what's behind the curtain, because we see what's in front. We see the smile. We say, oh yeah, everything's great, and
Right.
I'm always going to like peel that curtain back. It's like, no, how are you really doing? I think Jenna Kutcher, she's like one of the influencers. I mean, that's like the title of one of her books. How are you really?
Right.
It's very telling. And you can ask people, it's like, are you happy? Are you enjoying what you're doing? Is it giving you joy? If
Yeah.
not, then we're kind of missing the mark a little bit. It's not just about the dollar in the bank account. It's not just about the lifestyle.
Yeah.
There's so many other nuances and layers to what creates success and what that actually looks like. And so I've had a great opportunity to examine a lot of that, even since the last time you and I met a year ago at your last Warrior Unchained event.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the things that you've had to conquer in your time. So, like, we're talking about all the challenges and things you have to overcome. So, let's peel back that curtain a little bit, so what are some of the things that you've had to conquer in your time?
Well, in the last year specifically, is being able to really pick out my own self sabotaging behaviors.
Ooh, big one.
Yeah, they're repeating loops that keep tripping us up until we really have the time to sit still and reflect and do some introspection. Um, all we're doing, I mean, we're giant human antenna walking around on this rock, right? And so all through our life, we're just collecting all this data, and it stores in the body. It's in our DNA, and the body knows, and the body keeps the score. And what happened even a year ago gave me a lot of fresh data to start extracting, unpacking, analyzing, and looking where the energy of our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions are coming from. And what are we actually carrying around that's ours? And what are we carrying around that's not ours, even that's being projected on us, particularly when we live in partnership with somebody in our house? They're going
Mm,
through a rough time. We cannot, in proximity, not feel and have some of that energy projected onto us. And it's not intentional, but it happens. And and then we judge and blame ourselves. And it's not really our fault. It is what it is. And so doing a lot of that work for myself has really helped me create some really good boundaries for myself energetically,
yeah.
physically, mentally, socially, right? All the things. It's like, whew. And when we take that time to be quiet and be still, to minimize distractions, because as humans, we are conditioned to be attracted by our distractions. I mean, people want to sell us. They have an economical reason for us to listen or to pay attention or buy from. And it's like there's a lot of noise. And when we can quiet the noise, particularly what's going on in here, then we can listen to our own intuition, right? Our own soul and our spirit really wants to have a voice, and we squelch it by absorbing everybody, all these other influences, right?
Yeah.
That's been the biggest lesson, I think, for me.
It's important. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about the things that, like you said, if we don't create those boundaries, what I tend to see happen is when I'm not being true to those boundaries and I kind of let my guard down and maybe I get down on myself, that's when I'm most susceptible to buying into something I don't need in that moment. Because I think, oh, that's that thing. Now that's going to get me there. This thing's going to get me. When I already have like an arsenal full of things that I've already purchased to help me get to the next step. But when I'm not being true to those boundaries is when I'm more apt to like be grabbing at all these things that I don't necessarily need, especially not at that time.
Right. It's very telling, and actually exercised this. I went to a workshop, probably about 6 weeks ago, and I exercised discernment. I was so proud of myself. But here's the thing: salespeople do a great job of activating triggering emotions within us, right?
Yeah.
When they activate something that screams shame, oh, you're not making enough money. Well, here, buy this product and you're going to make all this money. Or there's some kind of anxiety, there's some kind of envy, jealousy, there's some kind of anger, right? There's low vibrating energies. And if somebody's trying to sell you something and it activates one of those low vibrating energies, that should be a red flag. Like, ooh,
Yeah.
where's that coming from? And when you realize how much control that you really do have over your emotions and you neutralize that, you become in power. You keep your money. You like, oh, thank you, no, thank you, right? And you learn the
Yeah.
lesson. And to be able to do that is so empowering. It's enlightening. And there's been some books and I'm doing study all the time. I'm the proverbial scientist. I'm always unpacking the lessons.
Yeah.
We we give away so much control because we don't have control, self-control, self-discipline, focus. And it's not a judgment, it's an observation. because I've witnessed it in my own self.
Yeah.
So
And I
that's
think
some of
that's,
the,
go ahead.
no,
I think that's when we see it in ourselves, that's the only time we can really help others. When we can kind of get over that hurdle ourselves, working through that. And you said something about, people kind of go after those low vibrational energies, the jealousies, the not enough. I feel like when you're at that point, it's harder to succeed, even if that's the best product on the market, because you're kind of stuck in those feelings. You're stuck with those limiting beliefs. And if you don't work through those first and you're in that low vibration, how do you bring it up to here?
right.
It's like there needs to be more work, I think, on that personal development side, that has to go hand in hand with the professional development,
Hmm.
you know?
My answer to everything like that, and I like to use science because I am a nerd that way.
I love that.
um, I like the frequency scale. Those that have studied it know that all those low vibrating energies, they're at the lower end. I call it like the acid scale and like a pH scale. And
Yeah.
then you've got the higher vibration, the love, peace, joy, serenity, enlightenment. All those are at the higher end. So that's more basic, right? So how do you neutralize an acid like those low vibrating energies? You throw love on it, right?
Yeah.
So instead of fear, it's love, and it really is simple. But we humans want to complicate it. They want to make it. It's like no, let's. Everybody just wants to be loved, right?
Right.
And they want to be heard and validated and seen and belong. But
Yeah.
unconditional love is that neutralizes all those low vibrating energies. So whenever I feel that gurgling up, because again, a human here,
Mhm.
spiritual being having a human existence, something like that. It's douse it with love, neutralize it first, and then analyze it. It's like, where's that coming from? Ooh, what's that all about? It's usually something so mundane and so trite. The quicker those answers come, right? The more you do it, it's like a muscle. You go to the gym, you build that confidence, just like you build a muscle, you reprogram the brain. It's all very conceptual, contextual, and it all works in every aspect of your life. We make decisions based on our emotions. People know that. That's how we're sold. People are trying to trigger something. Ooh, I'm hungry. Oh, right. It's like, no, you're not. You're just bored. And
Yeah.
so it bleeds into other aspects of our lives. It's like, it's been here the whole time. Why haven't I noticed that? Well, it's just learning to, oh, here we go. You'll like these. You may have seen these actually. Do you remember these?
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a difference of looking at life 3 dimensionally and multidimensionally, right?
Yeah.
So it's changing your perspective, putting on a different set of lenses, and just really being astutely self-aware.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of lenses, let's talk about how you've shifted. I mean, I've seen you just, these newer projects, and I'll let you talk about it, but I've been watching you through social media. I'm like, wow, she's really doing some really cool stuff. So that where are you at right now? And what's some of the new things that you've been introducing?
Oh gosh, everything's very expansive, and expansive is my word for 2023.
Love that. That's a great word.
Yeah, it is. Well, I just launched a book. It's another anthology,
Mhm.
and what's interesting is it's the third of five. I've got actually two more coming out later this year. And it's what's
Amazing.
interesting is I didn't plan for them to all kind of be released at the same time. I have no control over who the organizer and when they release them. So it just seems like, oh wow, you just signed up for three anthologies in a short amount of period. It's like, no, that wasn't the way it was planned. That's just the way it turned out. But this latest anthology is A Circle of the One. It is 33 authors, and everything's very intentional, and there's a spiritual component to it. Those that are into a little bit, not super mystical, but into numerology and quantum physics and the energy that goes around that. So, um, The Circle of the One is an anthology of authors who have transcended through their own healing process. And each of us has a character or a god or goddess, and that's our chapter in the book. And mine happens to be courage is her birthright. So I am the goddess of courage in this book. Um, and that character, the main character, the courage, goddess of courage, use my words, is a common theme that has carried me throughout my life. And part of the story, it also talks about my courage to learn how to process my emotions and release energy and baggage that I had carried for decades. Right.
Wow.
And this is some of the work that I've just been doing in the last 4 years. I've made quantum leaps in 4 years,
Wow.
50 years, right? 5 decades of going through the motions, showing up, doing all the work, living in old identities, holding on to those identities that no longer serve me. I created amazing success for family, for stepping out with courage. But when I started creating success for me, that's the shift, right?
Wow.
That's the self-love. That's the unconditional love. That's the healing. That's the journey. Um, but what the important part of that story is, I lived on antidepressants for 17 years because I didn't know how to process emotions. I didn't know how to do the healing, to do that work. And um, something, I mean, it's not that I'm proud or not proud. It is what it is. And so I
Yeah.
don't judge it. But there's a lot of people holding on to medication, to salve as a distraction. And it keeps us really from living our fully authentic self,
Hmm.
because we're meant to feel our emotions. There's lessons in all of it. It's not good or bad. It's learning to take that label of good or bad off the emotions. It's part of the human experience. And there's a story and there's a lesson in each one of those situations that the emotion comes up. Even now, I mean, there's no perfections. There's no perfection, but love is the love and enlightenment, right? That's the ultimate goal, is we want to be at peace with ourselves, make peace with the past. And that's what this 4 year process has been for me.
Wow.
You know, if I can help somebody, give them hope that they don't need to be dependent on a medication years and years and years. I mean, 17 years. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. I mean,
Hmm.
but there was many times I tried to go off of them, but then life just became too hard. There were too many people dependent on me. I needed to be that strong woman to push through, persevere no matter what. That's some of the self-sabotaging behavior, right? And when you see it and you call it out and it's like, oh, there it is. It's like, do I really want that? Do I want to model that for my children and for the people that are following me? That's not really being authentic. So that's a
Wow.
lot. I just handed you a lot.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing though, and I can't wait to get my hands on that book because I just feel like it's going to be very impactful for so many people, and to have that many stories included. Wow, I mean, usually just hearing one person's story can really make a big difference, but to have that many in there, I'm
Mm.
really excited to get this book.
Lots of different journeys, and as I said, I did a Facebook Live. It's like, whoever reads the book, they're going to identify with at least one or maybe multiple characters in that
Right.
book. And that's kind of the story with gods and goddesses. It's like gods, like Greek mythology, and that's the framework of my story.
Yeah,
Depending on who we are at one particular moment in time, we're going to identify with a god or a goddess, right?
right.
Goddess of love, Athena, or goddess of strength. Even for guys, we emulate, we create gods and fictitious characters and storylines based on human identities and own personal stories. So that's part of the healing journey, is connecting with other people, is we get to learn a little bit about ourselves, or maybe we forgot and that jogs our memory.
Yeah,
That's one of the things that I really learned quickly when I started networking, connecting with people like such as yourself. A couple of different groups that we belong to. The more we connect with people, the more we actually learn about ourselves, and that's kind of what the circle of the one is about. It's
yeah.
making that human connection, showing that we're truly not alone, that we really are one voice, and we're just here to help each other out and live our best life and walk together as one.
I love that. You know, in anthologies, like you said, it's connecting with at least one person, and if you can change one person, that's what it's meant for. And it makes me think of how Warrior is set up. Warrior Unchained is, it's almost like an anthology in a way, because all the speakers that come up on stage share their stories. They give lessons, they teach, and not everyone's going to connect with each speaker. But if you connect with even just one of those speakers on that stage, it can be such a powerful, transformative, experience. And that's why I put this event on. Oops,
I just got
somebody sending you a heart. I can't see who it is, so hopefully they give
uh-uh.
permission to restream so we can actually see who's commenting. Um, so, of course, you were with us last year for Warrior Unchained Live. Chris attended. She was the host for the VIP night. You did a mastermind for us, and now this coming year you'll be speaking on the main stage on Saturday. Um, can you share a little bit of your experience since you hadn't attended obviously Warrior before last year?
Mm-hmm.
What was your experience last year? What did you think of the event?
I love the event, and sometimes, I mean, we've been to lots and lots of conferences, right? And yes, we
Yeah.
glean wisdom and insight from the speakers on the stage, but there's as much connection and collaboration outside of the speaking, the talking
Oh
points,
yeah.
right? It's the people that you're sitting at the table with, and attracting those people and just planting seeds for future possibilities and future collaborations. And I mean, that's true for any conference that you go to. Yes, you get your ticket price worth the value times 10 and 100, right? Based on the relationships that you create in the room. So it's a very intentional process, not to just show up and listen, but
Right.
really glean from the full experience that's available to you when you walk into the room.
Yeah. And that's really what we try to cultivate is that the magic happens in the audience. I can put some incredible speakers like yourself on that stage, but honestly, the magic happens in the audience because people that are sitting at those tables, we're all learning, we're taking in the information that's given to us, but sometimes it's that conversation that happens after that speaker stands off the stage where there's real growth and, like you said, connections, collaborations. I've seen people lean on each other's, building relationships while they're there. I've been told over and over people who have come to the first warrior, the second warrior, they've created so many friendships and relationships from that still continue. I don't know if that was an experience that you had at all. Did you create some new relationships with the last warrior?
I did. I actually have worked with a couple of the attendees in the audience, on a personal
Awesome.
level, and looking forward to seeing them again. And it's almost like a family reunion when you get to see those people over again, right?
Yeah,
But no,
I
I
agree.
just I enjoy the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to show up and support your event again, and try to bring even more people into the room.
Yeah, and I'm just excited to have you on the main stage this year. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you'll be bringing to Warrior this year?
Yes, and did you actually write down the title of what I gave you several months ago? Do you have that in front of you?
I don't actually.
That's okay. You know what? That's good. because because I continue to evolve. What I wanted to
Mhm.
share with you 6 months ago is different today,
Perfect.
right? And that's, in my opinion, again, take it for what it's worth. No, here's the thing: is people don't have to believe what I'm saying. It's offering an opportunity to upgrade your perspective and your perception and experiment with it, explore it.
Yeah.
It's how can I convey that we should always be upgrading? And so, to that point, there's work that I do on the short end, but the bigger picture is I have a pretty audacious goal, and everything that I'm doing is intentionally leading up to that big goal. And so, I actually bought a web domain because that's how I roll. That's how I set the intention. I buy
Awesome.
multiple web domains, right? And when I get downloads for ideas, it's like I immediately go and see if it's available, right? Then I know it's mine. It's like, okay, I've got
Yeah.
ownership of it. Here it is. And then you start working backwards, putting the
Yep.
pieces. So, um, I really want to empower, and it's not, and this is not a gender thing. It's not about male, female, husband, wife, man or woman. How do we, and I bought the web domain retiremyman.com.
I
Okay.
like it.
Yes. There have been two instances previously in my life where I took bold action. That goddess of courage came full swings. Like, you know what? I'm not willing to tolerate what's going on behind me. It is within me to take a stand forward, to stand for and push through and create something that would never have happened before for my family in the first I guess cycle. The second cycle was stepping up so I could be a work at home mom while my kids were teenagers and helping my husband get through college. Um, that's stepping up and stepping out in a bigger way. It's also allowing it. It's okay to be uncomfortable for a short amount of time when it's a worthy goal.
Yeah.
And a lot of us will set goals that are really small, when in fact is when a lot of those goals are lifestyle goals, I'll say.
Yeah.
Okay. For our creature comforts, for freedom. Well, the truth is you're already free. We're already free. It's have you chosen to embody that yet? And that's some of the work that I do with my clients. But when we create goals that are outside of us, okay, it's bigger than we are. That gives
Mm.
you some legs to stand on, right? That gives you the I'll be tactful with my words. um, let's just say it gives you the gumption. I could say a lot of other things, but I won't. You really have to be willing to step out of your comfort zone. You have to be willing to release identities that you have held on to that might be
Mm.
actually holding you back instead of allowing you to spring forward. So um, it's not just about female empowerment. It's not just about um, retiring your man. It's really it's a movement. It's like, who do I need to become to create a space where it's actually a story about love and liberation, right? Because
Yeah.
you love your partner, you love your your passion project, your legacy, you love that concept of what you're creating so much that you're willing to die for it, you're willing to push through to make it happen. Um, and people are beneficiaries of that. But you know what? You're also the beneficiary because you've proven to yourself what you can accomplish, what you're capable of, what you're willing to work for, and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. So there's so many different levels, right? But on a context, it's like you're liberating people. You are creating abundance for other people through your love of your work and in your being and who you are. Maybe it's your family, your parents, right? Maybe they didn't have the wherewithal, the courage, the confidence to create for them a way to be taken care of in their later years. So, right, it's not just about retiring your partner. It's really stepping into a bigger role of who we need to become. And the money is arbitrary. You know, it's really when you have that level of confidence, nothing, no one can shake you. That's a seven-figure sales confidence, right?
Yeah. What I love is as you're talking, you're really describing what Warrior Unchained actually is. So the message behind Warrior Unchained, I came up with it as a way of, we used to say, call ourselves mama bears, right? So when somebody hurts our child or does something to our kids, mama bear comes out, right? You do
Mm-hmm,
things, you're a force to be reckoned with, and you would do anything for the people in your life that you love. Similar to what you were saying, like when it's outside of ourselves, we show up in a different way.
mm-hmm,
And but not everyone is mom. So I didn't want to use that terminology mama bear. And I came up with, well, what does that look like? We become basically this warrior who fights for the people around us. And sometimes we keep that warrior chained inside of us,
mm-hmm,
because when it is just about us, we don't let that warrior out very often. So this event is about unchaining that inner warrior for ourselves. So we do show up as that powerful, force that does help everybody around us. It's kind of like on an airplane, you're taught to put the oxygen on yourself first before somebody else.
mm-hmm,
It's that same concept where you're unchaining that inner warrior. You're letting that mama bear come out to fight for you and to
mm-hmm.
create that life that you desire, that you want, but also there's benefactors to that, and that's really the whole idea behind Warrior Unchained. So as you're talking, I'm getting goosebumps, like, oh my God, she's describing what Warrior Unchained is all about.
Well, and because of who I am, there's also an upgrade. There's even more layers into it.
Yeah,
When we talk about, Mama Bear, that's a very, very driven, very masculine energy.
yeah,
Okay. That's like Picasso. That's like taking a wide paintbrush and painting broad strokes, right?
yeah,
And because we are human, we also exhibit feminine energy. And a lot of times we forget that that's as much needed as the masculine. The finesse is in the feminine. Okay.
yeah,
Allowing us to listen to our intuition, allow ourselves to heal. And I know you've been speaking about this a little bit behind the scenes, and there's a time and a place for masculine and feminine energy. And this is for men and women. It doesn't,
yeah,
not even gender, right? I mean, we
right,
all have it.
yep,
And we spend more time in one zone than the other. And it's like, yeah, there's a time and a place. There needs to be a flex and a flow and understanding when it's time to be more driven, but also the time to nurture ourselves, the time to really look at fine tune the details. And every day is just a small finessing. It's that tiny paintbrush, right? We're just kind of filling in the lines. And I know your daughter would identify with this all day long.
Yeah.
It's the finesses in the feminine. And
Yeah.
a lot of business owners that are truly masculine dominant, masculine heavy could benefit from looking where they can add more feminine, a little more grace instead of grind, right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
choice. Do I want to
Yeah.
grind? No, I don't want to grind. I want grace. I want ease and flow and to have joy and peace in what I'm doing. And it's not effort. When you do what you love and it's effortless, that's perfection.
I agree. And, I've really moved away from that hustle mindset, hustle culture mindset, because it is that very like you have to be on 24/7, always at it, just go, 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 go. But if you're not healing things on the inside, you're going forward kind of on an empty tank.
Right.
And so then there's the grace that we have to give ourselves. There's the healing,
Hmm.
in order to serve, which is what most of us really truly want to do.
Right.
Most of us aren't about like just grabbing the holy dollar. It's like most of us just really want to serve. We want to make a difference in the world. And I think that's that kind of that finesse that, you know, that more that feminine energy of serving.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then, as far as the giving ourselves time, I come from the fitness world, from health and wellness and personal training and being a fitness instructor and all the thing. And one of the things that really has stood out to me, and it's even important now in business. I mean, there are so many parallels to like going to the gym, right? There's mirrors on the wall. You think nobody's paying attention. People are watching, right?
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
they're not really looking at you. It's like, ooh, could I learn something new, right? And so I am very aware that people are paying attention off court as much as they are on the court. And so it's being in integrity off the court as much as on the court. Um, but in the physical realm, the body needs 5 basic things to thrive and to be healthy. And I love simplifying that. But rest and recovery is so underrated. Okay. We just want to push through. We want to hurry up and heal so we can get on and get with it again. And sometimes we have physical wounds, we have emotional wounds, psychological wounds that may take days, months, weeks, years to process and heal. And when we don't give that proper time and awareness, it's like you would just keep carrying, right? We still have these wounds that we carry around. It's like, yeah, it, it, I've just hopefully stretched the concept of how important that rest and recovery truly is and how, particularly an entrepreneur, because we're so driven, right? We abuse
Yeah.
ourselves
Yeah.
because we have to look good in front of the curtain. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, no. I mean, I went through a pretty dark, ugly period for 6 months. I went through a transition. My husband was going through some tough stuff. And when all that's going on, it doesn't always look pretty. And sometimes you come across or you say things that you wouldn't normally say because your energy is not where you want it to be. And then we isolate, and that's not always a good place to be. But people that are trusted in your space will help you get through that. And so having a tribe of people, it doesn't take many, it could just be 1 or 2 people, but having a few trusted people that will help remind you who you are while you're going through it, that makes all the difference.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I think that really does. And I don't think it's hard to grow alone. Like I said, you need to rest. You need to reset and recharge. But if you don't give yourself permission, I think that's where most entrepreneurs and coaches that I talk to, they're afraid to do it. They're afraid to take that step back because, oh gosh, what momentum am I going to lose if I step back? I'm like, well, what are you going to lose if you don't take the time and take a step back and rest?
Well, and again, another fallacy or just I guess a perception. Even in the health and wellness space, a lot of the resistance for people engaging in a healthier lifestyle, making better, more quality choices, is they focus on what they're giving up instead of focusing on what they have to gain.
Yeah.
Right? It's that scarcity, that lack mindset. It's like, well, what if I did take 6 weeks off and allowed myself to fully recover, the comeback is so much better than the setback, and you come back stronger and more resilient. And that's true in the physical contents as much as the spiritual and the psychological. So there's a lot of parallels, and that's my background, and that's my specialized knowledge, and that's the whole package.
I love it. And then I just, in my mind, I just pictured, I just saw a video about this, about someone used archery as basically a metaphor for it. Like if you think about if you're holding your bow, you just put the arrow there and you just push the arrow forward, it doesn't go very far because you're just shoving that arrow forward. But if you,
Right.
and the further you pull back and have the tension, that's basically that
Mhm.
rest and recharging, and let go,
Yep.
how much further it goes. But
Absolutely.
yeah. So, well, this has been great, Chris. I cannot wait to have you up on the Warrior stage again this year. I can't wait to see the impact you make and, and get all that feedback from the attendees. Um, what advice would you give somebody who's on the fence about getting a ticket for Warriors? Since you were at the last one an attendee, what advice would you give someone who is kind of on the fence? Like, I don't know.
You're going to get at least 10 times what you invest in it. And it's
Wow.
being intentional, right? It's like, okay, I have a ticket. I bought my place in the room. It gives you proximity to your
Yeah.
future collaborations, expanding your knowledge. I mean, you're going to take away a nugget. If you take away one nugget from each speaker, that's 7 or 8, right? And
Yeah.
then the connections that you make in the room. And when you follow up with intention, they're going to be friends for life. And just come and plant seeds.
Yeah.
Plant
I love
seeds.
that.
Come ready to receive, because
Yeah.
that's the intention behind what you're doing, Wendy.
Awesome. This is just fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris. Everyone who's watching, and actually, Chris, I want you to tell everyone where they can find your book too before we close out. But where
Oh,
can everyone find your book?
yeah, circleoftheone.com.
So I'm gonna put that in the comments here.
Yeah.
Circle of the One. See if I can type quickly. It's just HTTP, right?
Yes.
Circle of the One spelled out, ONE, or the
Yes.
number one.
Spell it out.
Perfect. Awesome. So go buy Chris's book. Join us at Warrior Unchained Live. Just go to warriorunchainedlive.com and grab your ticket and be in the room. And like Chris said, be ready to receive. And
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of growth that happens. It's very immersive. It's very interactive. It's impactful. So hopefully we see you there. Thank you again, Chris. And with that, we'll say see you later.
Thank you.